Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. I'm Alex McKitton, Business Development Manager for IconSystem at Elicosoft, and I'm joined by my colleague Michelle Nichols, who is our Global Product Manager, who I'll be passing you over to in a few minutes. First of all, before we get started, just a couple of pieces of housekeeping. I'm not sure how familiar you are with the GoToWebinar software. So you can minimize the toolbar that's on your screens by clicking the orange arrow at the top. Should you have any questions as we go through, you can use the chat function at the bottom of the toolbar to ask those, and we will be able to circle back at the end and answer them. So just a brief agenda for today. I'll give you a quick overview of what is IconSystem and then hand over to Michelle, who will be able to give you a demonstration of the modules that make up the system, these being the specs and standards module and the project and properties module as well. Then, as I mentioned a second ago, if there have been any questions asked as we've been going along, we'll circle back and answer those at the end. So what is IconSystem and how can it help you? IconSystem is our one-stop building information system. In short, it's a cloud-based collaborative BIM software that can be used to record, specify, design and manage building data across the entire construction lifecycle. Because of the intelligent common data environment, which all of the information is stored in, it also allows updates to be processed and stakeholders notified of any changes in real time. So without going into too much detail, because I know Michelle's got that covered in a second, I will hand over to Michelle now, and she'll be able to give you an overview of the system and some of the functionality that's available within the system itself. Just bear with me a second whilst I hand over screens to Michelle.
Hello, and thank you for joining us today. I'll be doing a demonstration of the IconSystem, which is a cloud-based collaborative software. We have two core solutions, specs and standards, and projects and properties. So you can see our demonstration system on your screen at the moment. It's worth noting that the system can be customized with your own logo, branding, and domain name. We also have an unlimited user license policy. You can have as many internal and external users as needed accessing the system. So I'm logged on today as a super user, so I see all elements of the IconSystem. It's worth bearing in mind that there are strict permissions behind the system, so you can define what your users see. So starting with specs and standards, I can access this from the top navigation area here. We have 4 levels of information that can be displayed in this area. We have policy level information, which would be applicable across all of your format or product types. We have the individual formats and products themselves, department or area level information, and then going down to the final level of detail at an item level. And an item within the site could be a piece of equipment, a material or finish, a lighting element, doors and ironmongery, and also signage. So I'm going to take you through a route within the system that will follow you through a property type, as we're calling it here. So you can have as many property formats or product types within the system as you need. And today I'm going to go and look at a residential example. So some of you may recognise the image that you can see here. This is information that's based on the Samuel McAllister sample house, which is well publicised by Autodesk. So here you can see we've got an overview of what the property type or format that it is we've selected. So we've got the opportunity here using a content management system to communicate information about this particular scenario. So you can define the scenario and also communicate what sort of design principles should be in use. Looking at the tabbed structure that we can see across the top here, we can then move over to planning information. So is there any particular planning guidance that should be used when looking at this particular product or type? And as you can see here, we've got a couple of layouts of the Samuel McAllister house here. And if we scroll down to the bottom, there's also the opportunity to offer supporting information related to these layouts. So this could be your Revit plan, your CAD layout, or as we can see here, just a PDF that users can download to view further information. Within the IconSystem, we do have access to our Orbit viewer. If you are producing information in a 3D format, it's always a useful engagement tool to give access to users. Opening up the 360 viewer icon that you can see here opens a separate window. And I'll just move over to this area. So what we can see here is a Revit model that is open within the viewer, and we have the opportunity to explore this in more detail. So I'm just going to get a little bit closer to the building so we can see what's happening inside here. So I'm just going to walk forward and we'll turn around and get a better look of the room that we're sitting in here. So here you can see this is a lounge area. The Orbit viewer will allow you to navigate your 3D Revit file as we're looking at here and explore it in more detail. So we've got various functions within the viewer for you to move and pan around and zoom in on the objects that are here. We've also got a unique link back to the IconSystem, so you can interrogate the information that you can see here in a bit more detail. So for example, if I click on one of the items here, we can choose to view the specification that's held within the IconSystem. So here you can see we've got a suspended fireplace. We can select the seating here to get some more detail about that item, and here we can see who manufactures it, description and model references and so on. If we want to know a little bit more about the lighting, again we can select that item and view some more information, and we could also explore the doors that are held here as well as the furniture, fittings and equipment. Now with the general information and the overview that you can see on the panel on the right hand side, there is the opportunity to click the image here, which will then return the user, subject to their access permissions, back to the IconSystem. And here we can start to get that fourth level of information, this final level of detail about an equipment item in this case. So we'll navigate on to these individual items that we see in the IconSystem. But the Orbit viewer is an engagement tool if you are producing information in a 3D format. So returning back to the IconSystem, so if you remember, we're looking at a particular format or product type at the moment. We can also move along these tabs to get some more information. So if we look at the department level tab, this will note the areas that are relevant to this product type. Now here you can see we've used the term departments. These terms that you see here can be glossarized. So it may be more appropriate to have a term of area in this tab, for example, or maybe rooms. And here you can see we've got some areas broken down for the model that we've just been looking at. So we can see we have a lounge, dining room and bathroom. So we're going to go and look at the lounge in a bit more detail. And this will move us on in our journey. And this is a second level of information that we've just been looking at. Now we've gone into a third level. So this is giving us more information about that physical space that we've chosen to go and look at. So there's a couple of ways you can split your information down in this area, dependent on the type of data that you're producing and you want to communicate. So for example, we could have more detailed information about the layout of the lounge here. If you wanted to show some elevations, if you've got any particular fixing heights that needs to be observed, for example. So we can also offer, as we've seen before, supporting information at the bottom of this page. So if you had some CAD plans, for example, you could download them at this point as well. So we can communicate planning and layout information at this point, and then there is the opportunity to use the schedule function within the system to display fixtures, fittings and equipment, finishes and materials, doors, ironmongery and lighting that should be associated to this area. So I've moved on to look at the equipment. It's worth noting that we can create different equipment schedules according to your own business needs. And what you can see here are all of those items that we were just looking at within our Revit model. So when we selected our chair, for example, this is the item that the reference comes back to. Now within the schedule area, there are various filters that you can use to take advantage of all your data being in a database. So if you wanted to filter these items by a series or package, so that's another method that we use to group items within the IconSystem. Or if you just want to narrow down items supplied by a particular supplier, you have the opportunity to do that with the filters here. So you can see I've just filtered down just to show the items that are supplied by Herman Miller. There is also the opportunity to use these schedules and filters at a cross-product level. So you can start to explore and see commonality across your products. So for example, if you use an item in a number of places, a number of formats, we like to keep a unique reference for each individual item. So the item, although it may appear in a number of particular instances within the IconSystem, is only in the system once, but it is then referenced into different areas. So looking at these items in a bit more detail, we've already visited the chair that we saw earlier, accessed via the Revit model. But we can each open up these items and explore in further detail the information that you have. Now, there are a number of fields that can be stored against an equipment item, and each of the items we have store data fields that are relevant to that item type. So for example, we'll have a different set of fields that are relevant to doors and ironmongery, for example. But here you can see it's only information that is populated that is then displayed on the data sheet. So there are a number of other field types that can be stored against your equipment item. So if you needed to store various codes, if you needed to store maintenance information, for example, you could populate that information and the data sheet will only display the fields that are populated. So you do not end up with blank fields within the sections of information that you want to communicate to your teams. So here we can see we've got a detail of the chair. You can offer a larger image for your end users to view, and you can start to provide additional information. So here you can see we've got a model reference. We can see and explore the manufacturer in this case. And if we scroll down, we can start to find some additional information. So we've got some dimensions here. You can also note lead times, for example. And as I mentioned before, each of these items are added into the IconSystem once and then referenced. So if they're used across multiple products or formats, you can see their locations in this area. If there's any supporting information that you want to make available, that will be appended to the bottom of the data sheet too. So here you can see we've got a Revit family, and it's this Revit family that will have a URL embedded in it for access via the Revit model. Each item will be classified. So here we can see we've got the chair that's classified as an E10. So we can see this belongs to furniture and fittings, seating, general. And the numbers that you can see after here tell us that this is the 8th item of this particular classification, and that it is the first version too. We can also see it was first published in 2020. Okay. So we can take advantage of these schedules, and these are schedules by type, and we've mentioned that covers our equipment, material finish, lighting, doors and ironmongery, and also signage. We've got another way of presenting data as well. So if you prefer to view data in a room data sheet format, we've also got that opportunity to present the data using that method. So what we can see here is the lounge, but it's an amalgamation of general layout information, which is then appended with all of the relevant schedules for that room. So here we can see we have the electrical items, so we've got some sockets and switches. The equipment items that we've just been looking at as well. You can detail the finishes in this room, so what should be on the floors, walls and ceilings and so on. So whether that be applied finishes for your floor, what paint finish should be used, that can all be detailed and scheduled in this area. The doors we've touched on as well, so any particular doors that open into this area, as well as the ironmongery that's used with the door. And if we scroll down further, we can see that the room has some track lighting. And again, at the bottom of this page, you can choose to append any supporting information. So we have two methods of presenting your information. We can separate the layout information and generate schedules of componentry, or we can choose to display them on a single room datasheet for easy access to that information. Now, changes are controlled within the system. We've touched on each item having a version number. Each page will also have a version number. And we have a change control system that is used to draw the information in for it to be edited and updated as needed, and then finally approved and published within the system. And each time a publication takes place, your user base, depending on their permissions, is notified by email, and that will provide them with a link to come back into the system and to be able to see what's changed. It's a crucial communication tool for your external audiences and helps to manage that data from PDFs into a database and then communication through email out to that wider audience. Now, there is also an innovations area that can support the build-up and information gathering process for your specifications. And this will help support that trial process for any changes to specifications that may incur a cost or maybe involve a process change. And that's also a separate area that you can use to build that data. And then once you're ready, you can use the change management system to come and enter that into the system and then communicate that out to your external audience. We also have the opportunity to use these schedules and make them project specific. And that will allow the schedules to be brought through into a project, which can then be managed for any variations out on site. So hopefully, as you can see, this is a great tool for getting your specifications communicated out to both internal and external audiences. It helps to remove that pain point, particularly with your external audience in terms of communication and managing that controlled communication of information through. And obviously using a change system with a configurable workflow gives you an audit trail of what has changed, when, by who, and why. Okay, so I'm going to take you back to our homepage. And we're just going to explore projects and properties in a bit more detail. So as you can see, the solution is accessed through the same top navigation. As I've mentioned before, there are strict permissions behind the system, so you can control who sees each of these areas. So projects and properties, we split into two entities within the system. We're looking at storing data, but for two different purposes. So you can store information here in relation to your property portfolio, and this will allow you to store dates, facts, figures, as well as documents against a particular asset. And there's also the ability, using the same functionality, to store dates, facts, figures, and documentation again against your projects. So in terms of the projects, we're looking at time-bound interventions that may occur within your property portfolio. Okay, so we'll go and look at projects to begin with. Many of these menus have quick access levels. So as I've walked you through the specs and standards route just now, there are quick methods to access that data, and it's the same way with projects. So dependent on access levels, again, you can come in here and access a project hierarchy, which is a navigation area in effect, and would be of more use internally, particularly for administrators to see all of your projects at a glance. But there is also the opportunity to limit users just to see their own projects that they've got access to. So they don't need to see your program of activity, they can just see the projects that are relevant to them. So we're going to go through and look at all projects. And this will take us to a hierarchy area, again, a configurable area that we can configure to suit the program of works you have. So here you can see we've split our navigation route down by also types and products. So if you wanted to split your projects by type, for example, you could introduce some levels in here for new build or fit out. You might also want to split your project types by the product that you're actually looking at as well. So you can see here we've split some of the structure down to indicate retirement homes or maybe capital replacement projects, entirely dependent on your business. So we're going to go into a new build heading. So you can put as many levels in here as you like. So I've chosen to split by project type and then also the year in which they occur. So we're going to go and look at 2021. So we've just got 3 sample projects in this area for you. And as you can see, you're presented with a level of overview information. And again, this is all configurable dependent on the type of information you want to record. So you can see here we're showing a project code, the actual project name itself. There's an at-a-glance indication of the project files that are currently stored against that project, its project status, the property it relates to, if that's relevant for you and your business, its particular work stage that the project is currently at, and some key personnel that are involved within that project. So I'm going to go and look at our new build and fit out project for IconSystem Studio 2. So this takes us into our projects area. So as you can see at the top of the page, we've got a summary again of that particular project, and on entering the area it takes us by default to the document collaboration area. So I'm just going to walk you through some of the tabs that you can see here. So moving over to the left and starting off with the information tab, this is the area that will give you the ability to store dates, facts and figures associated with that particular project. So as you can see here, we've got some sample data, so you can show an overview of the project, the current work stage that it's at and what it will go through. And then you can choose to configure this area to display data that's of use to you and your business. So if you just want to show some milestone dates that may be relevant, if there's any particular approvals or consents that you need to go through, so in relation to the planning system here, you can see some internal approvals, exchange dates and so on. Gives you the opportunity to track financial information if that's relevant, or maybe you prefer to track health and safety information. And you can see here we've got some fields that are centered around the health and safety element. So once you've configured your template that sits behind the system, you can create your projects based off this template, which can then be used by your teams. We'll come back to the Documents tab shortly, but moving across the area here, one of the unique differences between the IconSystem and other products is a unique link that links the project to the property. So if you choose to keep your property portfolio data within the IconSystem, there is the ability to link your projects to that property. So what we're looking at here is a link to the property that this activity is occurring on. And I can move us over and go and have a look at that property in a bit more detail. So the areas both use the same functionality, but we're geared to looking at slightly different information. So you can again store date, facts and figures on your documents against this particular property. But what gives it real use and brings it to life is the projects tab here, and what we will see is any activity that is occurred on that property. So we're starting to build up a corporate digital memory of activity that's happened to the property. So here you can see we've got 2 sample projects. So we've got the actual new build project and then a subsequent capital replacement project. So what this area does is gives you a view of activities that have occurred, those that may be in progress, and maybe those that are planned going forward if you want to store program level information within the system as well. Okay, so I'll just move you back to our project area. Looking at the project in a bit more detail, there's also the ability to show the team. So these are all of the users that have access to this particular project. So we've just got a short team list here, but you can see it details the specific user, what company they're from, their contact information, and also what project role they may be serving within the project. So great to see at a glance who, for example, your cost consultant is, or your project manager, or your architect within the project. And this area can be used as well to administer access, particularly for your external audience. So we can set the system up so your external users would come in and request access to a project, and then they'd only be able to see the projects that they have access to. Okay, so I'm going to take you back to our hierarchy area that we navigated a short time ago. And we're just going to have a look at another project so we can look at the Documents tab in a bit more detail. So here we can see we've got another project that I'm going to access. Now you can see that the document structure is displayed on the left-hand side. The structure is configurable at a template level, so the structure is completely defined by yourselves. There isn't the ability for end users to go into the system and add additional folders. So the folders is defined by you, the client, and is customized at a template level. That can be managed by yourselves and customized going forward. So if you needed to add additional folders, you can go in and do so, but that is controlled at a template level. So the structure will lend itself to be standardized and will help with the knowledge and learning of finding information in specific places, and also help you share that information externally. So looking at some of the different folder types that we have in the area, we have a photograph folder type. So this is great if you want to store maybe some of your site photographs, and you can open this area up and flick through the images that we've got in that area. So a very visual display of any photographs that you may want to share. We also have a general documents folder type, and as you can see here, this can support all of the format types that are available at the moment. So you can see we've got Word documents, PDFs and Excel files uploaded here, and you can see that we have a core set of data about that file. So we have a title, a document number if it's appropriate, the revision, and the revision can be automatically incremented each time you revise the document. We have the company details of the user that's uploaded the information, when they uploaded that information, and also the status as well. And we have a series of icons on the right hand side here that will help you manage and control the documents that you upload to the system. Now each time the document is accessed, it's recorded within a history section here. So you can see when I last accessed this file. It will also give you the ability to access any previous revisions of that file as well. So there is strong version control and history within the system. And if we go and have a look at another file, for example, you can see here that this document has had three revisions. And you can see here for each revision who's gone in and accessed and downloaded the file. What we're also able to do is store different format types of that same document. So for example, if you want to ensure that the data is accessible by all and you want to offer that data in a PDF format, you can do so, but you can also allow alternative file types to be associated with that particular file. So here you can see we've got a Word document that's associated with that PDF. And that's particularly useful when you're dealing with CAD information. So for example, if you wanted to upload your source Revit file, you can also offer different file formats of that at the same time. And again, with CAD enabled data, where it's applicable, you can see that there's access to view that document online in the 3D viewer that we saw during our specs and standards demonstration. So if you need to communicate your CAD information, we've got a Navisworks file here, for example, and also an IFC file. End users can use this document viewer online to go and look at that 3D information. And finally, we have a certificate type folder. So any certification that's applicable to your property or within your project can be stored in a certificate type folder, and that will allow you to put a last test date and a frequency onto that certificate, so you can start to manage and review those recurring test dates and manage them in an ongoing fashion. Okay, so that brings us to the end of our demonstration. I hope that's given you a flavour of our two core solutions. Please feel free to get in touch with us and pose any questions that you may have out of today's demonstration. Thank you.
Thanks, Michelle. That was great. So I noticed we are running low on time, but we have just got a couple of questions. So I'll answer those quickly before we say goodbye. The first one is the system available to install on premise? So the answer to that is no, it's not. It's a fully cloud-hosted system, which we feel the benefits of that is it increases security, but at the same time it also makes it easier for us to access the system and be able to assist and help our customers where necessary. The second question is, do you need Revit installed on your machine to be able to view files? So the answer to that is no, that you don't. You can view and interrogate Revit files or any other format of 3D files through our Orbit viewer, which Michelle showed a few minutes ago. So all that viewing is done through the IconSystem software itself. Okay, great. Well, I think that's everything we wanted to go through today. So thanks everyone for your time this morning, and I hope you found the session useful in terms of giving you a first look at the system. I will send the recording of this session across to all of you over the next couple of days. So if you want to watch any parts of it again or forward it to any of your colleagues, you'll be able to do that. But also, if you are interested in hearing or seeing more of the system, please don't hesitate to get in touch with us using the email on the screen now, which is iconsystem@elicosoft.com. But I will try to follow up with each of you next week to get any thoughts and feedback from you as well. Just one final thing to mention before I say goodbye is that we are exhibiting at Digital Construction Week next week. So if anyone is planning to attend, it would be great to see you there, and we can have a further chat and talk more about the IconSystem there. Okay, thanks everyone.